Hey folks, hope you guys are having a good day. I know I'm having a pretty good day. Tolerable so far, except for the fact that I got a bit of a cold. So I don't know how long I will stream today, simply because, yeah, I have a cold. And because I have a cold, just dialing in my levels here, changing my mic position. Because I have a cold, my throat don't feel that good. And my nose is very stuffy, so my voice probably doesn't sound that great either. So we will probably... I don't know what I want to do today. I kind of thought about doing some music, you know. I might do some live music because I managed to get that set up a little bit better than I had it set up for like doing live performances or like demoing live music with this setup. I do want to get another... like a different camera mount, so I can put this camera. Right now it's on like a little stand, and then like I have a big 4K monitor behind it, so it's really weird. It's just a weird setup. It's not really a setup that, I don't know. My old setup was maybe a little easier because I could I could put it on top of a monitor, and the monitors only took up this space. Now the monitors, it's like having 4 HD monitors. That's really how it is. Let me get this. There we go. So I hope you guys are having a good day. New stuff coming. I got one. I'm not sure what's a better title for this new story. Mechanical demoniac or digital demoniac. I like the alliteration. Digital demoniac. But mechanical has a cool, that fricative sound. Mechanical versus digital. Digital demoniac, but like, I don't know, alliteration is always so good for titles. If you can use alliteration, then it really helps with the sound of the title. Digital dreams, digital demoniac, Put on a show years ago called Mechanical Dreams that people really like that. So it was like mechanical demoniac. But I think digital demoniac is actually better. It's about like demons in the AI art, which people are like, are there demons in the AI art? And this story just uses that as like the beginning for a horror story. Like maybe there's some demons in the AI art, and wouldn't that be cool? How do we do that story? I wanted to do some Fire Emblem Engage gameplay because some people have asked for it, but my capture card died, so I don't have a way to stream that other than like, I guess I could point the camera like at the, I could like point the camera. Here I have the console here. I could like point the camera at the console or like, I don't know, do some kind of weird camera rig, point it down at the desk and like play it with a controller maybe. I don't know. We can try something like that if we want to. It's just going to be really janky. It's going to be a very not professional solution. But if we want to do some Fire Emblem Engage, I do have it. I was going to do like a little skirmish here just to kind of demo, what the game is like. It's a good game. I enjoyed it. Definitely you pick up more interesting characters as you go. I'm not a huge fan of the very first characters you meet. They're a little silly. They do kind of grow on me, though, over time. So, I don't know. My early impressions were like, I think these characters are kind of lame. My later impressions are, I think they're okay. I think they're likable, for the most part. They just are not... Some of them are just kind of one-dimensional. There's just not a whole lot going on with them. That's how it is. Take it or leave it. So, I don't know. Maybe we'll play some... We'll play some Final Fantasy or something too. What's up with music? So I put out a song last month. I'm gonna try to do one song a month for 2023. That last song I did, I think I may do one more, or maybe 2 short ones. Demon Ex Machina sounds very good. That is a great title. Let me see if I can show the preliminary cover I designed. I got it around here somewhere. So I did a preliminary cover. I'll show you what it is. I specifically use AI to make the cover, and I asked the AI prompt to do something a little weird here, which is let's see if we can see it here. There. Get it a little bit smaller here. It's kind of a weird framing, but where's center? Okay, this is a very small part of my monitor here for some reason, but anyway, oh no, I could just do it on this one. Where is it? Wacom. There we go. Okay, so there's the preliminary cover. I'm going to give this one away if you're on the list. So this will be a free reader. If you haven't hopped on my mailing list, I don't spam with my mailing list. I only use the mailing list to communicate about things that maybe people have missed, or like whatever content is cool, you know. So I maybe we'll do one time a month to do content, or like announce a book, because I come out with a book every 3 months or something. Then that's about how often I end up doing the mailing list. So anyway, that's the cover I designed the other night. Notice all the weird fingers. I wanted to accent the weird fingers, so they're there. But yeah, I like Demon Ex Machina. Sounds really cool. I was going to do Digital Demoniac because I like the sound of that as well. Yeah, I purposefully chose the hands because I just they're hilarious, right? Like AI can't do hands very well, and it can't actually do eyes very well. So I painted over the eyes. I painted a bunch of stuff on this. This is actually several images kind of mushed together and layered. I could bring up the Photoshop document. It wasn't that hard. It only took me this is what's cool about AI art is you can do something like this in way less time than you would do other stuff, right? It would take way less time to do this than to do if I were to, I could find a model, I could paste a bunch of fingers together, or make a weird looking hand and then license a piece of art. You could do it with stock photos, but the AI art makes it a lot quicker, and then I don't have to pay royalties. Or have the same picture on my cover. So if you look at the cover of City of Silver, I don't have a copy here. Do I? I might. If you look at the cover of City of Silver has a guy on it that's on dozens of book covers. It's not unique at all. But people don't notice that much because it's just a guy in a hood. There's a guy wearing a hoodie holding a sword. That's basically it. Yeah, it's hard for humans to draw hands. But the hand is a very complex thing with a lot of details on it. We're really designed to look at faces a lot. We look at the faces, but not the hands as much. So yeah, hands are difficult to draw. They're difficult for real artists to draw. So it could be difficult for the computer to draw too. So anyway, that's kind of what this story is dealing with. Is what if there's a demon in it? It's gonna be an interesting one. That'll be a free reader. So Nathan, if you read my book Prophet of the God Seed, I have a certain iteration of that, which is not. So the way people get enslaved is not so much the machines. I mean, it's related to that. Basically, what do you do if you don't know how to do something? Chances are you look it up on the internet. Well, if you take that to an extreme, that means people stop locally storing all their skills. They stop remembering how to have skills or how to do things, and instead they rely on this internet thing to do their thinking for them, to do their remembering for them. So this is what's in this piece as well, is this very flawed and sort of poor and temporary memory that we get with the internet, is that people don't remember things. They don't remember how to do things. They don't remember things that happened. They can look things up and that's it. Now, there's a boon because you can look things up that you didn't know, but what if you wanted to change the perception of reality? You just eliminate everything that you don't want people to read via the internet, and that'll do it for you, right? So in Prophet of the God Seed, Earth has become a place where people are completely dehumanized and are basically repair drones for a non-sapient net. The net is not a sapient thinking thing like a human mind. It's more like an organism that perpetuates itself like a fungus or like a colony of ants or something like that. So people get turned into worker ants, slaving away for a machine which controls all of their thoughts and actions and tells them what to do and when. But the machine is not sapient. The machine doesn't have consciousness. It doesn't have a soul. Rather, it's just a thing that once it reaches a certain point, it has its own self-repair protocols and uses people as basically robot drones. Hey, go do this. This is how you do it, and that's how it perpetuates itself. So there's all these other civilizations are built around preventing that from happening. So there's only certain kinds of things you can do with computers, because otherwise you risk the possibility of people losing their ability to think for themselves. They become drones of the machine, of a non-sapient machine. And then that's the conflict on this planet they visit, which they're actually revisiting it after thousands of years. But because of time dilation, it's only been 20 years for them. Is that there's two big factions. One is a highly technologically advanced faction where the entire warfare machine starts to be controlled via artificial intelligence and a computer. So the computer is making all the optimal decisions like a chess player and just directing people where to go. And when the computer shuts off, people are all of a sudden, they're so used to input of data directing what their actions, they become almost like lost ants. They start like a ant death spiral. They just don't know what to do. They lose a whole sense of what they were supposed to be doing. Their purpose comes from just repetitive actions from the machine. Versus another much more religious sect which doesn't use computers at all, or uses them in a really minimal fashion, so that they can persist in their humanity, but they suffer a lot higher casualties, and their culture is messed up in a bunch of other ways as a result of it. So anyway, you can read that. That's Prophet of the God Seed. It's one of my older books. I really like it, but it wasn't a big hit. So I think you can still get it for free. Yeah, I think you can still get it for free. So if you want to read it, you can read it for free. How cool is that? Yeah, there's cats and kids in the background. Kids doing stuff. Get them out of the frame. Yeah, it's all about delegation. The humans just become like little, I don't know what to call it, like omni robots, like robots that can do lots of different stuff. They can do, repair work. They can do whatever you instruct them to do because they're intelligent. So they make ideal drones for this like super organism that is the net. The net becomes, again, not sapient. That's a weird thing. It's like, oh, what if the machines become sentient? Well, I mean, the dogs are sentient. But sapient, wise. How can they have consciousness? We don't even know what consciousness is. There's scientific papers that come out that are like, consciousness is an illusion. I'm like, did you think of that all yourself? It's like, we can't touch consciousness. It must be illusion. Well, consciousness is something which you cannot touch. It's something that's very difficult to define, and it's something that's difficult to quantify, and it's difficult to understand. So if there's something you can't understand, how are you going to replicate it in a machine? You have to assume that the machine will just develop consciousness spontaneously as a result of having computational function. And part of the problem with that is that it views the brain as a computer, which is not true. The brain's not a computer. It's not analogous to a computer. And it views the human soul as the mind, which is also not true. So an AI can't spontaneously generate consciousness because it requires something to input what consciousness is. The only way that you could think that it happens is that if the brain is like a computer and consciousness spontaneously arrives from having a complex computer. That's kind of a weird bit of faith. Like, you have to have a bit of faith to think that that's the way that consciousness arrives. But that's where you end up with the hyper-materialist perspective, is like, yourself, your consciousness, your life is something which arises randomly from matter, rather than being something that's animating matter, right? I've searched on how to tell if eggs are good or bad way too many times without storing the process long term. Yeah, we do this, and I do it too. It's like I look up a bread recipe and then I forget the bread recipe, or I don't write it down. Things like that. And then what if that bread recipe disappears off the internet? Am I still going to have access to it? I don't know, a lot of questions there. So, but these are things I deal with. And in this new horror book, it's more, it's another schizophrenia simulator. I do these, right? Like Eyes in the Walls. So what is the question, right? So one of the things that the protagonist talks about is that you're not going to find articles like this on the internet. They disappear and people forget that they ever existed. And that's one of the big thrusts, one of the setups of the story. Nice sweatshirt, Halkia. Here, yeah. Oh no, you can't see it. She's got a sweatshirt with one of my books on it, so that's fun. Yeah, she has a sweatshirt with one of my books on it. Sorry, I was showing that weird book cover. Yeah, I think I like Demon Ex Machina. That's a good one. I'm gonna consider that one. Who came up with Demon Ex Machina? Thomas Michael. Yeah. Yeah, making offline copies of things is a good idea. Tim Pool made the point, at one point you can know almost all the knowledge in the world since there was so little. Now things are so complex you need specialists, and if they go, most tech is gone forever. This is how I did a video on this, like how dark ages happen. And they happen because the way economies work is through division of labor. And division of labor is really division of knowledge. You have a blacksmith, he knows how to make swords. If that blacksmith dies, who in the village can make swords or horseshoes? If the answer is nobody, then that technology gets lost. And it's the same thing with writing. Writing was the domain of specially trained people called scribes. Now, what happens if you have a plague or a disruptive event like a war and the scribes die or they move away? Well, then there's no one who knows how to continue writing, or the knowledge of writing is so slim that it can't continue. And all of a sudden you end up with the Dark Age. The Greeks had a Dark Age for this reason. They had these Bronze Age palatial complexes, and when the system collapsed, all the knowledge that had been accumulated in these urban centers got dispersed in the countryside and lost, and had to be reacquired from foreigners. The Phoenicians, the Greeks got their more modern alphabet from the Phoenicians, who got their alphabet from other peoples of the Levant, like the Hebrews and the Egyptians of the Middle East and that Mediterranean region. So, we're lucky that the Egyptians managed to hold on to their writing so that people could have writing in Greece again, because everybody forgot how to write after the Bronze Age collapse. Very, very cool stuff. Very interesting stuff to me. But that's how it happens, is that you diversify knowledge to the point where if one person dies, you lose a technology. And that's how a Dark Age happens. Yeah, the fingers are on purpose. The fingers of this are on purpose. It's about like a demonic AI. So the fingers are actually done on purpose. Have you seen Hi-Fi Rush, the mid-2000s aesthetic? I haven't seen it, but everybody says it's really good. As a musician, I feel like you'd enjoy it. It makes me think of, like, what was the one, Jet Set Radio? It's just what it makes me feel. It's what I feel like I remember is Jet Set Radio. Videos and all the tech we have now for storage and presentation is probably the best we'll ever have in being able to keep the knowledge. I agree. And huge amounts of books. Books deteriorate slowly. Scrolls deteriorate slowly. They stick around for a long time. There are tablets that are maintained in various parts of, say, like Korea or Japan or China that are, really old and will last a really long time. They're like protected against insects. What matters, though, is that if people forget how to read the words on the scroll, then the scroll becomes worthless to them. So one of the things that we can't ever lose is our ability to read and understand. When that goes away, then you really can't have the possibility of suffering a Dark Age. And we need to have like physical copies of lots of things, because digital things can disappear. Especially the more data you get, not only can things disappear and you don't realize it, but it becomes harder and harder and harder to find the things you want to find. And that's part of it as well. The issues that we constantly roll media forward due to media decay. At some point, we'll need to make what amounts to a punch cards out of bronze or the like. This is a great idea. Like, how do you make a really archival piece of computer information? Disk rot is a thing. It takes a long time, but it's a thing. Can you make a disc that doesn't rot? You have to make it out of some very resilient material, like punch cards out of bronze, or you make the disc out of like pure silver or something like that doesn't decay the way that other things do, or like gold, like pure gold, and then hopefully it'll hold those little divots will hold their shape forever. What's up, Kind of Corner? Hope you're having a good day. I've been playing with a lot with AI recently, and I don't think that AI is going to replace real artists, writers, etc., but rather replace midwits. Well, it shortens the amount of time that I have to make something. And the thing is that if I made this with stock photos, am I painting it still? No, I'm still like using photos, right? I'm still photo bashing something, and a lot of artists do photo bashing and then paint over them anyway, which a lot of people don't know about. Yeah, it can replace midwits. We've seen for years now they've been replacing people with chatbots. Like you use a chatbot, you may see it on a website, it pops up, how can I help you today? I'm like, I don't believe you're a real person. I believe you are a robot. And that's fine, because maybe the chat can answer a question like, hey, where are your driver downloads? Oh, here's the link. So the bot can just find the driver downloads for you on an otherwise poorly designed website. So it's kind of cool that we have that. And the other thing is like, well, that takes away a job from a person. I'm like, who wants to sit there and like be a chat bot? Like, who wants to sit there and like have a bunch of chat windows open for people who visit a website? I don't think that's a job too many people actually want. Now, they'll take it in the absence of other jobs, of course, right? And so that's a thing, right? Like, if more jobs are available, even if they're crappy jobs, then people have an option. They have a way to create economic value. The thing, though, is that people often forget that labor savings in general are an economic benefit. And we have this thought that like creative labor saving is now all of a sudden bad, but we've been doing it for a long time. Like I've been using stock photo covers for a long time. People have been using computers to paint instead of painting on a canvas because it's faster and you can erase your mistakes and things like that, and you can get to that final product that much quicker. So that saves labor. It saves the labor of the artist, meaning the artist can do more art. Presumably that would be a good thing, but there's downsides to everything, right? The fact that I use a word processor to write books instead of writing them longhand means that I'm doing less filtering for what I'm writing, because I can, I'm not thinking as much. I'm not slowly writing it on a page. So I think most artists that are afraid of AI, and here's the other thing. The anti-AI stuff is a little bit astroturfed, and the people who would benefit the most from anti-AI stuff are large corporations because they already use AI like chatbots. But they're the ones who hold the copyrights for all this stuff. So if it's like, hey, Midjourney must pay dollars because they had their program, they inputted copywritten images into their program to, generate data sets. Okay, well, that means that Disney can just make their own AI drawing program, their own AI art programs. They have the money to hire as many programmers as they want to do something like that, and they own all the copyrights. So they just put in all of their own stuff, and they use AI to generate a bunch of crap for people, and they fire their animators. They cut their animators in half. Well, that's great. And then you can't do that. So you have to painstakingly animate stuff frame by frame while Disney gets to use AI to generate all of their animations. So great. How does that help people? Like that only helps Disney. A lot of people forget about that little bit. It's like, who owns the copyrights? Well, it's these large conglomerates. The little guy who's afraid of his art being stolen probably doesn't need to worry that much. Because most of the art getting stolen, like, just look at comic artists on Twitter. I know Kino Corner knows what I'm talking about here, right? There's all these artists, and they post here's a fan art of this, all right? So, make a fan art of Wolverine. What are you doing there? Well, you're ripping off a character that someone else made decades ago to get attention so that you can sell your real art. Oh, but if a computer program uses it to draw a new weird image, then that's bad because they took my image and put it in there. It's like you already You're doing the exact same thing, just slower with things that you didn't create. But nobody stops to think about that. They only think about themselves. They don't think about the process and the environment in general. Oh, nonlinear editing has saved filmmakers countless hours of work and millions of dollars. Yes. There's also the flip side, right? Is that linear editing means that you have to focus more on getting the shot correct the first time. You can't redo it in editing. And you have to really focus on like which, you had to used to physically cut film and tape it together to do editing. And so you had these complex like film editing machines that would run multiple reels of film so you could see, and then you cut and splice. And so your final cut of the film was like the cut of the film. That's what it means, cut. You would physically cut the film with a razor blade. And we used to do this with tape too. So if you wanted to create a fade, let's say you wanted to create a fade in your audio, you had your audio strip would be on a tape, and this would be the same for film. To make a fade, you'd cut it at a diagonal and like tape two pieces of tape together. So as each channel of the tape went over the head, and you'd try to record separate tapes for separate channels to do a fade properly. It would fade slowly from one to the next. So you'd always cut at this angle for audio so that it wouldn't go. You wouldn't have this like sudden end of the room noise or the tape hiss. You'll hear it sometimes, like on some audio edits, it'll go. That's because you didn't do a fade. Now you just do it digitally. You just digitally crossfade everything. It makes it so much easier than having to edit tape. If you've never had to cut tape before or cut film before, it's a pain in the butt. So yes, non-linear editing has been a huge boon to save lots of time for editors and to get films out quicker. The downside is that I personally think that a lot of filmmakers are focusing less on shooting it correctly the first time. It's the same thing with audio, right? There's so many movies now that they don't even bother trying to mic the scene. They just have people act the scene, and then they have them all come back in the studio and overdub their lines for the entire movie. Almost the entirety of Lord of the Rings was actually done that way because of the necessity of shooting outdoors and all these different places. It was really noisy, right? When you're outdoors, you can have the wind. You're not going to even bother to try to mic that. So there's a lot less control over the environment. You just overdub the dialogue later. You just cut out the audio track that's on stage or use it as like a guide to do what you're going to do, and you just do it all in post. You do everything in post. Well, that can create some laziness, huh? If you have a director that's sitting there and he just has you shoot it and he's like, well, we'll get it in post. And then you just hand it to a bunch of editors and you're like, make this into something good. And they're like, I can't understand the dialogue. I can't edit this correctly. The lighting is bad. You stop worrying about setting up the scene and shooting it correctly the first time. And you start thinking, well, I can rely on my software to fix what's wrong. And musicians do this too. They start relying on their software to fix what they can't play in the studio. They're like, let's just do the next take. It's like, no, get that take done correctly. You will save time by doing your first take correctly versus trying to do lots of studio magic to cover up the fact that like you buzzed the note somewhere or there's tape hiss or something like that going on in your setup. So that's the flip side of that. Same thing with writing longhand versus writing in a word processor. Yeah, it saves a lot of labor, saves a lot of time, but there's a tendency to allow people to be a little bit lazy. I'd say there's a lot more bad books now post word processor than there were bad books before there were word processors, because there were so many more steps that had to go through before you printed a book. Now you can just like, I'm going to write a Chuck Tingler about dinosaur erotica, and out it goes, and people read it, and it's terrible. But if you had written out longhand, maybe you'd look at your words and be like, this isn't good. You'd read them again. That's why I shoot film but then edit in nonlinear systems. It's a good balance. That's a good idea. I still have to painstakingly plan each shot, but the new systems give me more freedom in post. Cutting tape and film is a major pain. Also, more movies now are over-edited. Wouldn't have happened a few decades ago. Yeah. There's a saying, and we use it a lot in music. The perfect is the enemy of the good. So what happens and I'll just talk about music in general. because digital editing has made getting such a refined sound more possible. There's a dehumanization of the performances on tape. It used to be you'd record live and you just took the best take. You do a couple takes and you just took the best take that you could. And if somebody messed up at the end, you might do the radio fade and just like fade it out. You're like, I'm not doing that take again. Just fade that shit out. And there were mistakes on the records. A really famous one is actually in the solo for Master of Puppets, where Kirk Hammett, he doesn't even know what he did. He's like, I was playing a solo, I was improvising, and out popped this high note. He goes, I like the string buzzed against one of the pickups and produced this crazy high harmonic, and he just went with it. He goes, it sounded so cool. It's this high screeching note, and I can never replicate it on any other take. So even though the first take had all these other mistakes, we just kept it because it had this one note that was really cool. So, that famous solo in the Master of Puppets is an example of the good is not the perfect. You have a tendency to use click tracks and things like that to make everything completely ironclad on the time. You're recording every single track independently. You're running like compressors on everything. So everything is super dialed in, and it starts to sound mechanical after a while. It starts to sound not very real. That's kind of the problem with digital editing audio, is that it allows such a fine control that people aren't bothering to learn their parts before they play them. And they're not bothering to play as a band. I can't remember the last time I heard like a groove on a record, that you would get from playing with a real band, where like the time kind of sticks together in this not exactly regimented way. It's a little more fluid with the time. You just don't hear that anymore, unless you're listening to like certain kinds of jazz. Jazz still has it because there's still the emphasis on the live element, but pop music, it's gone. You used to hear it on Michael Jackson records. There was a groove to them. That's why that old pop from the 80s sounds so much better. There's more mistakes for sure, and the tempo's inconsistent sometimes, but you gain something that I think is it's easy to lose it. I try to leave a lot of that stuff on my records. I don't try to do so many takes that everything's perfect. I try to get the take done correctly. But if there's like some little out of time thing, I'm like, that would happen playing live. Maybe we just kind of leave it in there. I don't want to spend an hour correcting the fact that like, I played half of a measure slightly out of time at some point. You just kind of go with it, and it sounds more like a live band. It all kind of works together, Anyway, so there's that. It's all pluses and minuses. There's all trade-offs. In general, I think computers are a great trade-off for creativity because they allow me as an individual to do so much more. The fact that I can do an album by myself and I don't have to hire a bunch of brain-dead, half-high musicians to do a bad album that never gets any traction is great. The fact that I can publish books on my own is amazing, with cool covers and all kinds of stuff. Flip side is, there's a lot of people that use those shortcuts to avoid doing the hard work of doing something good. Yeah, the downside of making an artistic process easier. If you're painting a physical painting on a canvas, it's just different. I really still like doing ink drawings on real paper versus the computer because there's just you have to live with your mistakes, but there's just a focus on each stroke that you have to maintain because you know that you can't undo them, and it creates a better product in a lot of cases. Even when it's not better, it has a different flavor because of the mistakes. I really hope film doesn't die out. So many modern movies, TV shows have a pristine high def look that's distracting to me. Give me the grain and the grit. I like the pristine high def look personally. I think it looks great. However, I don't mind film grain. Just like with vinyl, there's a quality, there's a pleasantness to the less defined lines and colors in real film. I find it in general, I don't know if I find it more pleasant than like highly defined digital. It really depends on the context, but it's more pleasing in many contexts. It's less resolution, it's less sharp, but it's more pleasing. if that makes any sense. Visually, it can be, it just has a different feel to it, you know. Same thing with listening to something on vinyl. While we were on the topic of comparing computers to the human mind, I'll suggest reading An Introduction to Gödel's Theorems by Peter Smith. Okay. TBH Rebellious wrote Chuck Tingler centuries ago. There was a really bad writer from the 18th century, and I don't remember his name. He self-published like 100 books, and they were terrible. Interestingly, people are now deliberately putting imperfections of previous eras into music. It's fashionable to include vinyl static on digital tracks. Yeah, it's. I have it with on Ableton. It's like here's a vinyl static thing. I'm like, it's a little weird, but because they used to sample stuff off of vinyls, they used to put the vinyl in and sample it, and it would have the noises and there's little pops and stuff that happened with worn out records. A lot of new music now feels too sterile. I feel like it just stopped listening to music past a certain year unless I really like the artist. Reminds me of this video I saw a while back that MMOs, WoWs especially, were more fun when they weren't as convenient. Exactly. When mechanics were worse, the gameplay was more fun. Well, it's because you have to look at it as like a holistic thing. So, yeah, music becomes sterile. It's too regimented. The click track is too omnipresent. Yeah, it feels computerized. It feels too computerized often. It feels too slick. And people will spend too much time trying to make it sound perfect and have the perfect compression rather than just having it exist and be good. You know? And this is true with MMOs. It's not that the mechanics are worse. It's nothing worse about having to walk to an instance, for instance, but it produces different effects when it's less convenient. So you used to have to wait for a boat in EverQuest. And so you could wait for a while to take a boat to a different land, and you had to physically walk to different places. So that lack of convenience changed the way that you played. You made friends as you waited for the boat, or you made friends because you needed someone to like portal you somewhere, or to buy a lamp at level 1 or something like that. You made friends as you went along. Same thing with WoW. Having to walk out to the dungeon meant that you had clear elites on the way to the dungeon, meant everybody had to group up and everyone had to make friends, and you made friends in the zones. People are like, where's the social area of new WoW? And the reason is there's no inconvenience. Like, you queue into a dungeon, you're there with 4 pre-selected other people of the same gear level, and then you play through the dungeon, and then that's it. And then everybody goes their separate ways. Versus having to select who you're going to play with, make a group, go to the dungeon, clear the mobs, get started. You didn't want to let the team down by quitting halfway through, but now it's like, I'll just quit. And then that reflexively impacts design. We can't have these 2-hour dungeons anymore because people will just quit. So we'll make all the dungeons 20-minute experiences. Well, that's good in one way because, hey, maybe I only have 20 minutes to play. But it's bad in another way because it eliminates the inconvenience created all of these emergent gameplay properties that made the game a lot more fun. That's just how it was. I've done several videos on it. I've been listening to current pop song remade as older 20th century musical styles. It seems very popular. I wonder if it's fulfilling something lacking in contemporary music. I think it's more part of cultural ground zero as well, which is this idea that about 1997, the culture just kind of ran out of steam artistically. That was the last year where you could expect next year's stuff to be better than this year's stuff. You know, movies started to just kind of stagnate. Lots of sequels. We had sequels in the 80s. We've always had sequels. But like it started to get a little overwhelming starting in the 2000s. You've had like 8 Fast and Furious movies, like 7 Mission Impossible movies. I don't know how many Jurassic Parks at this point when you include the Jurassic World movies. Terminator, whatever, you know. It became really out of control. At the amount of lack of new stuff that you would see. You wouldn't see blockbusters would be a previously existing franchise at that point, you know, not a new thing that people hadn't seen before. A really, really interesting idea, but it's the same thing with music. I was in the mall the other day, and all the music they were playing was from 20 years ago, and this was like in a trendy store that we walked. I don't remember why we walked through it, but you know, the trendy store for 18-year-old kids was playing pop music from 2003. I was hearing Kylie Minogue songs that are 20 years old. That's weird. That's a little weird to me. but it's true. And if you were to pick out if you pick a song from 2002 and a song from 2012 and a song from 2022 and try to figure out how they were stylistically different, if they were all in the same kind of pop style area, you'd be like, I don't know which one is from which year. They're all done digitally. They're all very sterile. They all have the same like 4/3 or 3/2 sound going on over the time, da 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 da, you hear that da 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 da. That 4/3 feel is like, or you have this, you'd hear it like every song would have it for like 20 years. They do that over, you'd have a hard time figuring out which one was which. And what would clue it in, the only reason you know which one was older if you had never heard the songs before, you'd be like, this one's not as loud from 2002. So that was the older one. Because starting in 2002 to like 2008, we got like the loudness wars really kicking off. So now songs are just super loud so that people with their little earbuds can put them in and hear them. Nobody has a good system to listen to music anymore. They just listen on their phone or like a crappy Bluetooth speaker. It's amazing to me what people consider hi-fi sound now. It really is. Go down to Best Buy and you listen to some speakers and people are like, oh, these sound really good. I'm like, I could tell you haven't heard a good stereo in a while because these don't sound good. Like I have my stereo hooked up to a 5.1 system that came with the house. It doesn't sound very good to me, but it sounds better than what most people are used to. They're like, this sounds really good. I'm like, I just have it so that like, because it was already built in and my wife doesn't like to have speakers everywhere. Joke's on her, I put speakers in the corner to power my music corner. But anyway, she doesn't like to have old looking speakers. Whereas my hi-fi system, if I have it all set up with running vinyl from the 70s, vinyl from the 60s, speakers from the 60s, newer amp, sounds really good. It sounds way better than these little Bluetooth Bose speakers that you hear. Way louder, more present, warmer, just everything, every word that you want. Just a more pleasing experience in general. Way more details from the better speakers. Most modern speakers are crap unless you're going to spend a lot of money. And then you're going to get probably going to get a good speaker, but you already knew that. So, but consumer grade stuff 40, 50 years ago was way better than consumer grade stuff is now. That's just, the speaker coils were made better 50 years ago. They just sound better. That's why people are constantly looking for older speakers. It's a guitar thing too. I have two guitar cabs. One is from the 90s and sounds amazing. One is from the 2000s and sounds like crap. They have the same speakers in them. They have the same modeled speaker. They're Celestion Vintage 30s. It's the speaker that all the metal guitar players want to use. It's a very characteristic sound. You're going to hear it on like every record. It's on like In Flames, Hammerfall. It's on like every record, right? From the late 90s and stuff. That heavy 90s sound is those Vintage 30s. Well, I figured out what it was is they changed where they were making the speakers. They stopped being made in England and started being made in China. And when they started being made in China, they didn't, for whatever reason, they didn't bring over the manufacturing method. So they started sounding really bad for like 15 years. So if you get the ones from the 90s, they're great. And it's the same thing. These old Marshall Greenback speakers from the 70s, people want them so bad because they have such a characteristic sound. You just can't duplicate it. The newer stuff just doesn't sound as good. But people haven't heard it in so long, they just kind of forget. Just kind of forget that stuff used to sound better, that like those Class A stereo amps sounded better than their boombox. We slowly replaced all of our good crap with worse crap as far as audio is concerned. And then when a company comes out with something that's a little bit better than like the standard consumer stuff, people are like, whoa, this is really good. I can't believe how good this is. It's like, it still doesn't sound as good as an old hi-fi system. An old hi-fi stereo still sounds better than most new stuff unless you're like really spending a dime. And that's kind of the way it is now. You got to spend some money if you want like the really high quality speakers. Speakers make a much bigger difference, by the way, than most people realize. They're one of the most important parts of your stereo system is actually the speakers. If your speakers are crappy, it doesn't matter how good your amp is or your receiver is, it's going to sound bad. And if your speakers are really good, you can plug a pretty middling bad amplifier in, and it's going to sound really good. You're going to hear a lot more details, because the truth is the amplifier just makes things louder. It doesn't add a lot to the tone. It doesn't clarify the sound. Audiophiles get sold a bunch of garbage because they think that all of these things in the chain really matter. If you really wanted your best hi-fi system, you would spend like 90% of your budget on like good speakers, and you'd spend 10% of your budget on everything else. They're like, oh, I got to get a better DAC. There's your DAC is probably not the problem. You probably have bad speakers or just crappy headphones. And you'll know if your DAC is a problem. Most people's DACs, when they say digital audio converter, they mean a headphone amplifier. The headphone amplifiers just usually don't have enough headroom. They're not loud enough to drive good headphones. And then, yeah, you should spend some money on that. But if you were going to pick it, I wouldn't buy a $500 DAC headphone amp. I'd buy a $70 DAC headphone amp and $500 headphones if I wanted to hear things correctly. And then you have to get good digital files that will sound good. And then you're going to have a really good listening experience. Or just you could plug that DAC with RCA cables into a good hi-fi system, and all of a sudden be like, whoa, it's so good. I can't believe I'm running through these old crappy RCA cables. It's like old crappy RCA cables sound really good on a good system with good speakers. They just do. So the speakers matter so much. All right, take it easy, Kind of Corner. Have a good one. Yeah, I'll come to Austin sometime. I'm still in Houston, but because I have kids, I got to have like a reason to go there. I might go there. I think we might go there this year for a conference that my wife needs to go to. So I think Austin's on the bill at some point in 2023 if anybody's there and wants to hang out. Otherwise, we can hang out in Houston area. I've broken three $300 headsets in the last 5 years because they're made out of cheap materials. Oh, I know what you're talking about, man. Can't get you out of my head. Yep, I hear it so much. And it's 20 years old. I have a cordless headset, and I think it's crippling the audio. Either that or my hearing is failing because I'm working too much construction. Could be a little bit of both, especially if you're losing detail on the high end. If you're doing a lot of construction, make sure you're wearing hearing protection. Yeah, make sure you're using hearing protection because that will help a lot. But yeah, Bluetooth headphones generally are not going to be as good as like real headphones. If you want to know what headphones, I'll just recommend these. I have a lot of hearing loss, and I have a good loud amp, so these work okay for me. So if they sound good to me, they'll probably sound good to you. These are recommended from a friend of mine who has better hearing than mine, but also does a lot more audio work as far as like production, and he just knows gear a lot better than me. His name's Ron. And so he recommended these DT770 Pros. These are the 80 ohm version. They come in 3 different impedances. I have another pair in the lower impedance. If you're just going to plug them into your phone, get the lower impedance. I think it's 20 ohms or something. If you have a good headphone amp, I recommend the 80s. These are really comfortable to wear. They sound great. Metal headband all the way around. Nice pads. You can replace the pads. The only thing I wish it had was a replaceable cord. My AKG headphones, which I don't have near me, they have a cord you can replace, which I needed to replace at one point because I ran over the cord or something with a chair and it got torn up and destroyed. So I just bought another cord and, the headphones kept going. It's not that hard to repair cords. You can do it, just solder a couple wires together, but still, I don't want to have to do that. So these are great. Metal. This part's plastic. So this part can break over time, but I haven't had any issues with it. Check those out. Good closed back headphones. Instead of getting noise canceling headphones, you can just get like these. You can wear those on the train. You're not going to hear crap. Yeah, the plastic hinges keep breaking. This one, it goes into a plastic housing, but the actual piece is metal. The little piece around it is plastic. So that part might break eventually, which would suck. My AKGs I've never had the band break on them, just the cord. The AKG K240. So AKG, they're the newer ones. Again, the older ones are better because they're not made in China, blah, blah, blah. They're made in Germany. Obviously, older ones sound great. The K240s are a really good entry-level studio headphone. They're open back. They have a very clear sound as a result. They don't, they're not a sound isolating thing. They're really durable. I've gone through 2 pairs over the course of 30 years. And I used to use these for like everything. Beat them up, took them on the road, all kinds of stuff. So they're really good. As a good entry, I think you can get them for like $50, $60, $70. People need to look at like studio monitoring headphones rather than these gaming headsets and just get an external mic, because the mics that they put on these gaming headsets are crappy anyway. Although I did see that Rode was going to make some headsets, which is weird. I use this, the microphone I'm using here is a Rode NT1 from like 2000 era. It's old again, but the newer stuff is just as good in my opinion. And then I run through like a Scarlett interface. It's all consumer level stuff, but it sounds pretty good. All I need. My gaming headset is a pair of Audio-Technica ATH-40s. There you go. With cheapo lapel mic. Yeah, but the mic and the headphones sound far better than any purpose-made headsets. Now, I had a little clip-on mic that I used for years that came with a Sony audio cassette recorder from the 1990s. And this little mic, I still have it. I'll plug it in and like do something with it sometime. And it's like, this tiny mic sounds so much better than the stuff that's built into all these little devices. It's unreal. Just a purpose-built device that just plugs into your little microphone port on your PC sounds so much better than the stuff that's built into your phone or whatever else. It's really crazy. I had a secondhand Audio-Technica headphone that was fantastic. Yeah, they're nice and clear. What's up, Sound Engraver? I'm looking at getting back into doing some music this year. I'm excited to do it. My hearing's recovered a little bit from last year, which is good. That means I can hear more of what I'm trying to do. Anyway, why don't we play some games or something? Talking about all the details. Okay. Before I go, I had a little argument with someone on Twitter, and I just wanted to make a point about this. One of the hardest things to convince people of is the difference or lack of difference of sound of different things or visual quality of different things because of the way that we interact with visuals and audio today. Most people listen to music on their phone. I have a really good phone for listening to music. In my opinion, it's the last good Samsung phone for music. It's an S10 Plus. Sony makes really good phones for listening to music. They're still not going to be as good as like an external headphone amplifier that can really crank up loud and a good set of headphones. So what the idea of what most people perceive of as good is putting earbuds into their ears and then comparing things that way. And that's not the best because you're not going to get the detail there. So it's hard to convince people what is better or worse sound when what they're mainly exposed to is just bad. It's the same thing like trying to convince someone that vinyl sounds better than digital when they don't have a hi-fi system to listen to vinyl on. And then I made the point that's like, is vinyl really better? In most cases, it's actually not. But we perceive it as being better because the situation in which we listen to vinyl is a much better situation than the situation in which you listen to your MP3s. You listen to your MP3s on your phone while you're working out or you're working at the job or something. When you listen to a vinyl, what do? You sit down in your living room, you put the vinyl on a record player, you sit on the couch, you crank up your hi-fi system with good speakers, and you listen to it and you're like, of course, vinyl sounds better. But if you were to put that same digital file on that same system, all things equal, the digital file if it's a modern recording, will sound just as good, if not better, than the vinyl. Where I think there are exceptions is if you are listening to old vinyls that are still in good condition, that were recorded with an analog process, those sound better than the digital remixed, remastered versions where they maximize the volume and stuff. And that, again, doesn't have so much to do with the medium, but the approach to the medium. You master a vinyl different from how you master a CD. When you master a CD, you try to maximize the volume. That's the way that it works because people listen to it on Pandora or whatever streaming platform. And so you got to crank it up loud because they're listening with tiny little earbuds in their ears at the gym, and they want it to feel really loud. And actually, we're probably damaging our hearing much worse with the little earbuds than big loud speakers in our living room, because it's like we're baffling that sound against our tympanic membranes, and a lot of high end screeching right into our ears in order to try to hear the detail. You don't get that with like a good system. So it's really hard to convince people vinyl sounds better or could sound better. It does, like I said, it doesn't always sound better because they don't have a good system to listen to it. They never listen to music in a way that would show you that vinyl sounds really good, that these analog sounds have a really pleasing sound to them. Same thing with visuals. So the argument on Twitter was, the HDR, the new 4K versions of Lord of the Rings are bad, or that they look bad. I mean, I have them. They're the best looking versions of Lord of the Rings I've ever seen. That includes viewing them at the movie theater, and there's reasons for that. So first of all, I have a high quality, I've played it on a PS5, so there's better quality Blu-ray players even than what I have. You have to have a 4K Blu-ray player that's capable of outputting the full HDR depth, HDR10 plus, which all my stuff does that. And you have to have a monitor capable of doing that. I have an LG C1 from 2021. It's an OLED. It's an OLED TV. You turn off the lights, you put that on. That image quality is pristine. What people said about it is it's too pristine. There's not enough film grain. It doesn't look like it looked in the movies. When you compare it to a DVD, the DVD is blurry, it's fuzzy, you can't see any detail. It looks way better than the DVDs, way better. And it looks better than the Blu-rays. People talk about there's this kind of blue tinge, there's a slight color miscorrection, either in whole or parts of Fellowship of the Ring for Blu-ray, that Blu-ray version. You can fix that on most TVs by just lowering the color temperature, which a lot of TVs have this filmmaker mode that'll automatically lower the color temperature to make it really perfect for something that's a little blue, and it'll look normal. But I digress. Even with that blue tint, it still looks better than the DVDs because there's a higher resolution there. You're still comparing digital to digital. If you were to get actual film copies of Lord of the Rings, wow, that would be really great. To watch Lord of the Rings with actual film on a silver screen, all that kind of stuff, that probably is the best. That's probably the most pleasing. Most people don't have access to that level. So if you're talking consumer grade stuff, yeah, the Blu-rays look amazing. So somebody linked this video. It's like, here's a comparison of the HDR versions and the regular versions. I'm like, this is a standard definition YouTube video. This does not show what it actually looks like. If you want to see what this looks like, you can't watch this YouTube video on an HDR monitor. You have to put in the HDR Blu-ray into a compatible player and watch it on your HDR monitor. All the things set up. If you were to then do that and compare it to a DVD, the DVD would look like shit by comparison. It just does. I have my old DVDs. I don't really want to get rid of them because I think the boxes are cool, basically, and I think they look cool on my shelf. But the 4K one looks so clear. It looks so good by comparison. But the YouTube video, it's like, look, all the HDR stuff is darker. It's like, and look, it's washed out. I'm like, you can't convert it to the standard definition range and retain the detail. This is a problem on some of my gaming videos that I haven't figured out a way to correct. So I just haven't mentioned it. Most people haven't mentioned it. If you watch the Cyberpunk video, there's all kinds of scenes where the whole image is white because I played it in HDR, but I recorded it in standard definition. So I recorded it in a standard dynamic range. Not standard definition, standard dynamic range. Recorded it in standard dynamic range, but I played it in high dynamic range, so it crushed the image, and it doesn't look correct. So yes, if you're looking at a standard dynamic range YouTube video of HDR content, the HDR content is going to look dark or too bright. It's going to look weird because it's not made for that. It's made to be played on an actual HDR compatible display. And let me tell you, when you have that, it does look better because I have the DVDs, I have the Blu-rays, and I have the 4K Blu-rays. I've seen all of them. The 4K ones look the best, and I've never seen them look as good as they do as the 4K versions. The 4K versions are pristine. They look beautiful. But how do I convince someone of that? What would I have to do? I'd be like, okay, let's go down to the store. Let's find an HDR monitor. Let's turn off all the lights in the store, and then let's put on each version of the movie, and you tell me which one looks best. That's the only way that you're going to see this. You can't look it up on a YouTube video. It's like when people are like, does vinyl really sound better? Let me put a microphone in front of a record player and a microphone in front of a CD player. They sound the same. It's like, that will not capture the experience of listening to this as a real person. It just doesn't. It's like, which guitar sounds the best? I've done this before. Like, oh, can you record these? Yes, I can. But the recording doesn't do justice to the guitar. If you want to know what my David Schramm guitar sounds like, you have to see me play it in concert. You have to sit in the front row and hear the guitar. Or sit in the back row, because it's a loud guitar. So you have to hear the guitar. An acoustic instrument is a different experience. Who did I go see? This popular violin player, Josh Bell, I think. I went and saw him. And he's a great player. Absolutely fantastic player. It was an acoustic concert. No amplification. I can hear the tone of the violin. It sounds so much different in person than it does on a recording. Now, the recording is nice and cleaned up. It's very pristine. It's great for the applications where you would listen to recorded music with your headphones in your kitchen or something. But it's a very different experience to hear the instrument live. It's the same thing with a classical guitar. It's why for a lot of stuff, if I'm going to amplify a classical guitar, it's like, man, I might as well just play an electric guitar. You're just going to lose so much of the tone sticking a mic in front of that guitar. And you don't know what the sound guy's going to do with it. It really sucks. We can't all be Tarantino and have a cinema with 35 millimeter projection in our home. I know, like that's out of the reach of most of us. But most people can like get a good TV and a good player and experience, I'm going to say like 90% of the quality of the movie. And in a lot of cases, it's better than the movie theater because you could pause it, get up, go get a beer, drink a beer, make some food, come back later. All those sorts of things. Where I think home systems really are not as good as it is potentially the sound, right? They use these really complicated sound arrays for a lot of modern blockbuster movies. It's really hard to replicate at home. Very difficult. It's not going to sound as good on a TV. You need like a legitimate sound system. That's going to be one of my later purchases. My TV, you can't see it from here, but it's in the next room over in a small room. It's a big TV in a small room, so you can actually see the picture, which means I don't need like a super loud system to fill that room. But you need one that has high quality speakers is the main thing. So that's the next thing I want to like save for and have it be good. Even though I can't perceive stereo as well as my family, I want my family to be able to enjoy the sound too. Anyway, so yeah, you're not going to be able to tell what HDR looks at by looking at YouTube videos. Sorry guys, you have to be able to see it in person. 4K fidelity is too high. I don't particularly like seeing the individual pores on the actors' faces. Well, I mean, I see that at the movie theater though, but maybe you're one of those people that sits at the back of the movie theater. Just get a smaller TV or watch it in HD. Yeah. If that's not pleasing to you, you don't have to watch in 4K. I like that. I like high detail. There's people who do 8K. I don't think 8K is going to take off the way 4K did because with the same size screen, you're not going to notice the increase in resolution. You're only going to notice 8K if you're sitting really close to a really big screen. Then you can see 8K, but otherwise you're just not going to see it. So the increase in fidelity only matters if you can perceive it. It's like, well, I want to listen to my digital files in 196 kilohertz or something. It's like, great. You actually can't perceive the difference between that and like 48 kilohertz. Sorry. You're not really going to hear the difference. It's like, but I'm doubling the sample, or I'm tripling the sample rate or whatever. It's like increasing the sample rate doesn't mean you perceive more detail because that's just how many samples exist in a single second. It doesn't make it higher quality audio. What matters more is bit depth. But once you get past about 24 bit depth, again, you're not adding more detail to the sound spectrum. Even the most like complex vertical sound there's not going to be a big perceptual difference if you hear like you could do this to have a whole orchestra play like a big chord and it's really loud. You'll hear more detail with like a 24-bit sound than a 16-bit sound, but not that much more. And then 32-bit, I couldn't tell the difference between 32-bit and 24-bit in those isolated circumstances. And then the context of a song, are you really going to hear the difference? Chances are probably not. CD audio is really good. It's actually very, very high quality. We can go better than CD audio, but the perceptual difference, you're only going to notice it if you have, again, a really, really good system that's really nice and loud with great speakers. Then you might hear the difference between 16 and 24-bit, 44.4 kilohertz versus, I don't know, 96 or something. You probably won't hear the difference under most circumstances. Certainly people who, are listening to digital files on their phone are never going to hear the difference between 16 and 24-bit. It's just they don't have the setup to hear it. They'll never hear it. The woes that come with recording violin are tremendous. Yes, so far I've not gotten that sound right. There's always ways. I haven't found them. So I have struggled to record violin as well. I will tell you some of the microphone arrays that I've used to capture violin. The problem with violin is that the soundboard points up. Now this is one of its best things about a concert hall. Violin and viola fill a concert hall in a way no other instrument does. There's this warmth, this beautiful warmth that just comes from every angle. When you're in a great concert hall and you have a good orchestra with, playing in tune and things like that, there's a different perception of sound for violin. So the sound's coming off the soundboard and the soundboard's pointing up. So putting a mic like in front of your violin like this, I have a mic here, I put my violin here. What's the problem? Well, it'll sound like, if I put it right on the soundboard here, it'll sound a lot like what it sounds like to the player, but not so much to the audience, because the audience is used to hearing more reflected sounds with violin. So what I've done is I've used a mic close that's kind of like maybe above, like here, and then hanging one just like way above the violin player. Now you get a lot of phase, you get some phasing there. Trust me, phasing is not as big a deal as most people make it out to be, especially with acoustic recordings. It's a much bigger deal if you have a highly saturated, like, full orchestra recording or something. But if you're doing solo violin, put a mic kind of just in front, like a person standing in front, not on the soundboard, and then hang one above the soundboard, and that's your stereo effect. So you have one that's it's present, but also gets some of the reflected, and one that's getting more of the direct sound. I think one of the worst things you could do is actually put a mic on the F holes. For whatever reason, that air coming in and out of those F holes, it just has this it's way too much mid-range. So that array has worked really good for me. And if you want to go more mics than that, what you can do is do maybe two distant mics in a stereo array if you have the room. Put them 10 feet away from the player, just kind of facing like normal, and you're going to get a lot more of the reflected sound. And make sure you're in a room with a ceiling. Getting really clean violin sounds, to me, goes against the nature of violin because it's this reflected instrument. Same thing with clarinet, right? If you put a microphone in the clarinet bell, it's going to sound bizarre. Clarinet bounces off the floor, so and it comes out of the holes. So to mic clarinet, you got to put a mic kind of far away and then one kind of above the instrument, and then you're going to get a good sound of mic of a clarinet. It's like putting you put a mic in a saxophone bell. That sounds like saxophone because the bell kind of points at the audience for a saxophone. It's a very direct sound. Clarinet, not so much. Same thing with flute. Where's the sound from a flute coming? It's coming off of this, but it's also coming out of the holes and it's coming out of the other end. So to mic flute, you really got to put a mic nowhere near the face. You got to put one kind of maybe just, stereo. That's probably what I do for flute. Acoustic instruments are hard to mic sometimes. Same thing with guitar. People put a mic on the sound hole. Bad idea. Put one below the bridge. Put one behind the bridge, facing the soundboard. That's what the guitar actually sounds like. It's that soundboard vibrating, and then you're going to get the sound of the guitar. Versus the sound hole, which has this kind of woofy, because there's air coming in and out of the instrument through the sound holes. It gets this woofy mid-range that sounds really bad. So those are some tips for miking, various acoustic instruments. The more you make it like a human ear hearing it, the more natural the sound is going to be. But the harder it is to control for noise. If you're in a noisy environment, it gets much harder. And this is why I don't get, okay, spot on. Violin's beautiful, but it works best with the right acoustics. This is why I don't like pickups and amps. I get the function, but it just sounds pinched. It's always going to sound, I don't know, kind of crushed. There's a crushed, like to me, what you end up with is this brittle high. Like you can use, so you can use is it piezo or piezo? Anyway, use a piezo pickup on your bridge, and then run it through an acoustic sound processor for like an acoustic guitar, where you can dial it in and do like a mic sim or something, and you'll get a much warmer sound, but it will never quite sound right. The high end is too brittle with pickups for violin, and it honestly for acoustic guitar as well. It has a brittle sound. It's too saturated at the high end. You lose a lot of the high end as the instrument comes up and reflects. And then, there's too much energy in the bass and not enough of the warm mid-range. So it's really hard. Yeah, it's really hard to do violin. Solo violin is one of the harder instruments I've had to like get it to sound correct in the studio. But what we usually end up doing is just a mic, like they're a singer, because this is a really natural sound. And it's close enough, it's quiet enough, and then maybe you can put one above and kind of mix that in if you want to get really complicated, because that's going to get more of the energy of the soundboard. It's hard. Microphones, they're kind of like ears, but not really like ears. I always think the best way to begin with a microphone is to imagine a human ear. So your microphone is like a little cardioid of a human ear. Like, where are you going to point it? And how do you could put cups around your ears like this. This is the way a microphone hears. And so if you put like a little cup around your ear and then point it until you find the right sound, that's going to be a really good mic placement to start. And then you can kind of dial in what you want from there. And this is, mics don't work quite like human ears. Human ears and the skull, we hear everything. Anyway. Some people like to mic saxes with one in the bell and one near the holes to capture the keys and air. See, I get that, but think about hearing saxophone in the audience. Do you hear this? That's what it sounds like when you mic the keys. It's still not natural. Like, you're getting more of the sound, but it's not the same as the acoustic sound. It just doesn't quite work out that way. But that's also, to me, if you're going to go full amplified, okay, let's say you're going to go full amplified and you're a violin player, I would look at an electric violin. You have the engineers that have already built in all of this stuff. They've built in amp sims. I have an electric classical guitar made by Godin. I don't know if Godin makes violins. I'm going to look it up. Oh, hell yeah. No, they don't. They make a mandolin. And they make an oud. Oud is cool. You could tie some frets on that, and then you have like a little electric lute. But yeah, I'd use an electric violin. And if I was going to do sax, I have this instrument, an iwi, an electronic wind instrument. If you're going to have to go full amplified, man, might as well go full electronic. Like, go full rock star with it. Make it something really weird. So yeah, it's closer to get the keys, but then you hear the keys clicking and you don't hear that in the audience. So I don't know. It's harder. French horn is very hard to mic for that reason. French horn, you only hear it in the audience because the bell's facing backwards. So you hold it like this, and then so if you put a mic in the bell, it doesn't sound like French horn at all. It sounds weird. So you have to figure out how to mic it off of a reflected surface. I've seen guys put like a board or something behind the French horn player, and then put mics in front of the French horn player, and then you get some of that sound. But it's really hard. It's really hard to mic French horn and get it to sound correct as well. I'm trying to think if there's another one. Tuba is actually not hard. You just put a mic in front of a tuba and it sounds right. It's same thing with trumpet. You just put a mic in front of the trumpet and it sounds like trumpet. Saxophone, flute, those are harder. Violin's harder because of how we perceive the sound. For trumpet, it's like at your face. Bell pointed at face sounds like trumpet. So you just point that trumpet at the mic and you're good to go. I'm sure there's some other ways to mic stuff. Yeah, I'm sure there's other ways to mic stuff. I used to get real creative trying to mic guitars. I did. Do I still have it here? So I do have an option that I've talked about on the channel from MSP. It's a Japanese company, and it's a magnetic pickup that sandwiches itself on the soundboard. You can use this for violin as well. Let me see if I have it. I have it up here. I haven't used it in a while, but I do have it. Some CDs here. Hearing aid box. The rare, what is this? Twilight Princess HD box, like the Amiibo. I don't have the Amiibo anymore. I'm not sure what to do. Okay, here it is. In this thing. It's a Japanese company. I hope they're still around. They sent me this for free, which was really cool. Really cool of them to do. Comes with all this stuff. I think this would be a great solution for violin. I don't know why this didn't come to mind. But if you need to amplify violin live, this was cool too. They sent me a letter. They made like a little origami crane for me. Isn't that beautiful? I love it. It's so cool. For good luck there. You have some like felt pads, and you can stick those in your instrument. But what you do is, this is so cool. I think this would be great for violin. Fantastic solution. Here's the pickup. Okay. It goes to a balanced 1/4 inch. That's the pickup. It's rubberized, so it's not gonna screw up your soundboard. It won't mar your soundboard. And there's a magnet here, and this magnet is on. Just use this little wire here, and you can bend it however you want. Put that through your F hole. Boop, boop, boop. Find the place that you want the pickup on your soundboard, and then you pull this out and see the magnet stay behind, and this just will be magnetically on your soundboard. This doesn't feed back. It's great. So this is from MSP, 123sound.jp. Okay, these guys were great, and it's not the cheapest thing in the world. There's different magnets. I have demoed it on my guitars, and it works great. This is a very strong magnet. It is going nowhere when you play. You could even do this. You could even get this as a 1/4 inch plug. You could do this with a wireless, and it would never fall off your violin. This magnet is really strong. Now, to get it off, you have to slide it off the soundboard. This will boom, drop down in your instrument, and then, oh no, how do I get it out? Well, you just put that in there, and this will pull the magnet out. This little thing here. And so, that way, and you can even leave the felt, there's a little felt bag on here. You can cover this magnet in felt. This is rubber. It won't mar the top of your guitar at all. It's awesome. So yeah, I really think this is a great solution, and this is a great sounding pickup. It sounds really, really good. Much better than most piezo systems that I've worked, or piezo systems that I've worked with in the past. So this is a good solution. It locks, has a little locking thing for TRS. It's great. So it's from 123sound.jp. Handle with care, as neodymium magnets are very strong. Don't pull the MSP cable before removing here first. Tells you how to unpack it. So yeah, 123sound.jp. Let's see if they're still doing business, because I haven't. 1, 2, 3. It was a very good solution. I don't know if they're still around. It looks like they're still around. Yes. And you can use this to mic pretty much anything. It's great. It's called the Magnet Sandwich Pickup. Pretty good for live stuff if you need like a live solution. So yeah, I definitely like this pickup as far as add-on pickup solutions. It's much better than those piezo pickups that they put like under the bridge of your violin. I think those sound awful. It's because it's on the soundboard. The soundboard is like the sound. And once you get, and it's really clear, it doesn't feedback. I mean, it can feedback if you're like, you know what I mean? Like if you're really close to the amplifier, you're going to get feedback. But it doesn't feedback as much as those bridge pickups, in my opinion, for guitar. And I think it would probably sound a lot better than like those really brittle, there's a couple, maybe you've used them, little piezos, you put them underneath the bridge or like in between the strings on the top of the bridge. This I think will probably work a lot better because it's the soundboard, not the bridge. Anyway, check that out. It's actually really cool device. I haven't used it in a while because I haven't been gigging. But yeah, if I were to gig again on my classical guitar and I needed to do it in a noisy environment, I could use that, or I could use that with a mic, right? So mics are going to be a lot noisier in general. Maybe it's like at a restaurant and I just want to have a little bit of a boost somewhere else. I can put my amp somewhere else and run that out there and it works good. Yep. I haven't talked to the guys in such a long time, but they're, they have cool stuff. Looks like they're still coming up with cool inventions. Japanese. There's a pasting type which like sticks on the top. Magnetic one is cool because you can remove it and you don't feel like it's gonna tear up your instrument. So it looks pretty good. Oh, here's like a little girl using violin. I just thought, I was like, hey, this would work for violin. You could do it for so many different kinds of instruments. So anyway, you can check that out. What time is it? 2:34. I have spent a lot of time talking. And not a lot of time gaming. But I think my voice is getting a little worn out, so I may actually stop here. I'm starting to get a little tired. I still have a cold. My nose is still really stopped up. I talked way more than I meant to. I meant to just like play games and not talk at all. But anyway, I'm just going to... Here's the PS Vita. I'm going to play just a few minutes. We'll play just a couple minutes of Final Fantasy. Microphone jack. Boop. Make sure nothing's gone wacky in the meantime. I find it so cool that there was just built-in video output for the PS Vita, but they never enabled it. They could have had a Nintendo Switch system all those years ago, but they just didn't. The engineers clearly thought of it, but they just didn't go the full Monty, I guess, and just do it. Too bad. It's a Hatsune Miku. So I've recorded some Hatsune Miku footage. Yeah, Hatsune Miku games are fun. It's Project Diva F. A lot of fun. Oh, what are your thoughts on setting up your DAW for optimal loudness levels gain staging? Okay. I'm not sure how to answer that. What do you mean by that? So, do you mean like making a loud final track like for distribution, or do you mean making it like how loud should your inputs be? Wait, you guys can't see this. Yeah, I'm not sure what you mean. So like, how loud should your input tracks be? Should be between -6 and -12 dB. So if you're in between -6 and -12 for most of your peaks, you're going to be good. Remember, digital's very clean, so you don't need to make your input tracks super hot like you're recording on analog tape from the 1980s. You don't need to do that. So keep it usually in the yellow to there might be like a red bar on your DAW. So you want it below that red bar. Otherwise you risk clipping. So as you're coming up to that red bar, you're going to have a good range. You don't want it to be too quiet, or you won't be too far above the noise floor of whatever you're doing. So you want your inputs to be about that loud, whatever you're recording. And any louder than that, it's not going to give you a lot of benefit. And if it's too much quieter than that, then you risk... Oh wait, I did a ghetto save, didn't I? No. All right, I have to hold it down. That's right. Final Fantasy VII. That's it. I think that's the one we're doing. Recently, I saw an article about how PlayStation and Xbox need to get back into handheld gaming. With the way Sony treated on Vita, I don't see it happening. Yeah, the Vita was so good and they didn't support it at all. So if you mean making a loud final track, that's a different thing. So to do that, what you want to use are compressors. And you want to use a limiter. So you use a limiter and the limiter is going to basically stop you from compressing things into the red, and it's going to set the top end of the noise ceiling. So no matter how much stuff is going into it, it's going to clip it at the top, and you want your limiter to be set like at -3 dB. It's probably good. You could do -1, but somewhere in there, negative. You want to be pretty hot for your final limiter. Then you're going to run compressors. You want to have a glue compressor on, your main output, like your final mix, like a glue compressor on everything. And you can run other EQs and compressors on that final mix to get everything dialed in correct. So I would run, say, you can run an EQ, then a compressor, then another EQ, or you could run what I tend to like is a multi-band compressor, then a glue compressor, and then an EQ, and then a limiter. And none of those you're going to go real extreme on, but the final result will be more compressed and will sound a lot louder. We perceive loudness in certain ranges as well. So if you want it to sound really loud, you want higher mid-range. So you want the mids to be really loud. Usually around 1.5K, it's going to have a really big bump in how loud you perceive something to be. If you're doing like 600, it's going to sound muddy, but 1 to 2K, playing with the EQ in there, you can get a lot louder sound that's there. So yeah, you run a lot of compressors. And then of course you may want to run compressors on every single track that you record to get each track cleaned up a certain way, or you may want to run a set of sidechain compressors that you can blend in with each track. Or, I tend to like to just have the tracks be pretty raw and then run compressors at the end for mastering purposes, and that tends to work pretty well for me. So that way you can get it really loud. And you can look up on YouTube. There'll be, I'm sure there's tutorials on like how to run your compressor chain at the end to get the maximum loudness. I tend to do different things because all of my music will end up sounding different from it. I use different instruments in every track, so I don't use the same exact like compressor settings every time I play. What was their reasoning with proprietary memory? Were they intending to cash in on that since they were producing betas at a loss? I think so. The point of the proprietary memory is to make people buy things that they normally wouldn't buy. Now, to Sony's defense, the proprietary memory was better than the micro SD cards at the time. You can get around that on the Vita now if you get an ST. It's called SD to Vita. It goes in your game slot here at the top, and you can put in a newer high-speed doodad, and it'll work great. So yeah, that's why I think they were doing like the SD cards, the micro SD cards that shipped with the 3DS, for example, were very slow. So if you get a 3DS, you may want to change that out to a faster one. You might see some benefit, even though the interface is not designed to run super fast. Is this guy going to talk to me? No. I don't remember what we were doing. Can't go this way. All right, we got to go this way. Anyway, so that's my best answer. Depending on what DAW you're using, you should be able to find some like free limiters and free compressors. People spend big money to get special compressors, but I think, you know, what I tend to use a lot is just the standard settings on Ableton. So they'll have, you know, an effect rack that'll be mixing, mastering. You have something that's like warm and wide master. Boom, put that on, and then dial down the compressor a little bit because I like a little bit less compressed sound. I didn't realize there was a save point here. Yeah, let's go ahead and save. And do it like that. So I tend to do like a multi-band, and I don't do any of these at like max, if that makes sense. You know, I don't have anything like cranked to 100. It'll get really loud by the time you finish the chain. You don't need to have stuff like maximum value compressor. Unless you're doing electronic music, in which case maybe you do. Electronic music tends to be more compressed, and you want it to be more compressed. You want it to hit harder and be more saturated sound in general. Not so much with other kinds of music. Or like metal, you may want it to be pretty compressed if you're doing metal or something like that. But I tend to not like hyper compressed metal sounds either. Just kind of depends what you want. You can't pass. You shall not pass. Is everyone here? These are the ones who brought this madness into the world. The hell are these people? We will be broadcasting your miserable deaths live on national television. Scarlet, why a public execution in this day and age? With the chaos resulting from the media reports, we desperately need to rally public support. It's better that we punish somebody, anybody. You make me sick. Ha ha ha. They'll never admit it, but everyone loves this stuff. We'll start with this girl. You gotta do it. Do me first. Camera this way. Make sure you get this. The audience just eats up tearful goodbyes. What are you doing? If you think about it, this is actually like a very silly thing to do. It's like the world's probably ending. It's like we should execute some people to keep like the public under control. It's like none of that matters. This is my special gas chamber. Take your time and enjoy a slow, painful death. Stuck-up bitch. Yeah, my thing with the proprietary memory is I think they just wanted to make money. They didn't, unlike the memory stick, they didn't use it in other devices. Like the memory stick for the PSP, their cameras use that, and like there wasn't like, and it was actually better than a lot of stuff available at the time. But not so much with the Vita one. It's only like, you know, it's not that much better. So, yep, I think it was mostly about the money. Not sure where my memory card is. Or I have an extra memory card too. I was thinking about getting another Vita and setting it up. I might do that. Kind of set it up for my son or something. Emergency! Emergency! Weapons approaching. Attention all military personnel. Take your positions. Oh no, it's weapon! Run! Hey, all of you. Damn, why now? How does it feel now, Scarlet? So you didn't run? I'm impressed. How do I feel right now? Yeah. Huh? Sleeping gas? Weirdo. I love handheld gaming personally. It fits a lot better into my life than consoles in a lot of ways because that's what's great about Hatsune Miku. You can play for 5 minutes and just like turn it off. Put it in your pocket. Oh, you gotta sit around and, wait at the DMV. That's okay. You can pull out your Vita and play 5 minutes of a game. The Vita had Bluetooth and everything. It's weird, like, touchpad doodad and touchscreen. This is a great device. It came out at the wrong time, and Sony lost confidence in it because of smartphones. They didn't see smartphones being the gaming phenomenon they were at that time. Catchy, I'm here to help. Why are you... I ain't no part of Shinra. Let's just say I'm against capital punishment. Besides, I hate this broad. Come on, we gotta help Tifa. I'll keep watch at the entrance. Fools have already pushed the switch. Alright. Wait, where's it? This the door? Is this the door? There it is. It won't open. It's weapon. There's been so many attacks lately. Can we handle it? I believe so. Your orders? No need to ask. We'll give it a shot from our big cannon. Open cannon doors. Activate cannon. Target weapon. It's a cool cutscene. It's like these 3D rendered graphics were very cool in the 90s. Like this was like really crazy stuff for gaming. We'd only been seeing like little 2D sprites. Now it's probably not impressive at all, but in 1997 this was really cool. We hadn't seen anything like this. Preparations complete. The cannon. Fire! Look at that water. It's a good little render, though. Did we get him? Seems so. Weapon approaching. It's heading right toward us. It's heading right for us. Speed 50 knots. It can't be. We'll hit it dead on. How about the cannon? It'll take time to reload. Then use regular firepower in the meantime.
Yes, sir. Open all artillery doors. Target weapon. Don't let it land.
I'm doing like the Bender voice from the remake at this point. That's John DiMaggio.
Bite my shiny metal ass.
Here it comes. Speed, 70 knots. Weapon closing in. Gas! Barrett, help!
Hold your breath. Hold on as long as you can.
Time for Gojira. Come on, I can't hold on forever. It's Japanese and there's a kaiju in it.
Shit. The gas room's probably locked from a different room.
We gotta go with a different plan. Let's get out of this room first.
Chief, I'll help you, I promise. No, they locked this too.
Fools! Now you can't save the girl. Ha 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 ha!
God damn it.
Okay, time for plan B. Let's run to the airport.
Why the airport? Leave Tifa there?
Trust me, we gotta take a chance. Dice! There we go. Upcoming segment between Tifa and Scarlet. Can't wait for that to be in the remake. I don't know what he's got on here. Yellow and phone. Alright, none of these are better. But he also doesn't have any materia, so I guess we should set that up. It's almost time to stop though. Alright, all fire. Let's go. Any skill. Elemental. Nice. Should have a restore or heal or something. Let's do all and we have a restore. I don't have one right now. We will use fire. attack, cover. New skill. And then these summons real quick. I might use those. Why not? Damn it. Oh wait, no, wait. Poison. And elemental. There we go. One thing about Final Fantasy characters, they can sure hold their breath a long time. Oh, here I am. They were in a hurry, but please, if I could have a word.
Shut up! I'm in a hurry.
Don't make so much noise. It's me, Yuffie.
The hell you doing here?
Oh, that's cool looking.
It's Cthulhu.
Me and the Dark Lord Cthulhu. I'll explain later. We gotta get to the airport. Oh, cool. She has magic. Quake. Fire T. Sword of Doom. Here, tranquil. Free heals. Sword of Doom. Go take an antihistamine after this. Getting stuffy. What time is it? No, we're about out of time. Alright, we'll get to this next spot. I spent too much time talking today. There it goes. Yeah, Final Fantasy characters can withstand the cliffhanger ending for quite a while. There we go. Alright, good, yeah. Did we go to this plane? I think so. need to heal Barrett. There we go. I want to save that. I want to save the limit break for like another encounter. Look at this. Am I going to this? I don't remember where I'm supposed to go. Wandering around. Have a good day, Sound Engraver. Good luck with the recording.
Yo, you sure this is the right way? It's a dead end.
Uh-oh, did I make a wrong turn?
You damn cat, what the hell are we gonna do now? They'll all be coming soon. Yo, better watch my back till the end, partner.
Move your feet and arms, then use your head to get out of the chair. Right arm, left arm. I don't remember, I just have to spam buttons or what. Let's see. Oh, there's a try different patterns, trying to combine two movements at once. Okay, gotcha. All right. There we go. Unlock that with our mouth. Unlock. Now. Unlock that one. There we go. Which button stops the gas? There it goes. Tifa escapes without anyone's help because she don't need no man. Open it. Cthulhu, me and the Dark One, Cthulhu. Here it comes.
Laser vision.
Shot it right in the mouth.
First you locked me in this weird place, and now you're telling me to come out? Make up your mind. Oh, that guy fell off and died. Awesome. Ouch. I'm okay. I thought Sapphire weapon was Emerald weapon after its head got blasted. Alright, where am I going now? I guess this way. Am I going off the side, or what am I doing? This way? This way. Here I am. Nope. Go towards the tip, you say. That's right. And then make our escape. So I just hear the wind sound. Our little game of hide and seek ends here. The execution may have been unsuccessful, but your death by falling from here and crashing into the water below still might be pretty exciting. Stuck up to the end. Quit slapping me, you old wench. What? Little slap fight. I think I lost the slap fight. Take her away. Now it's time to pay up. I'll really drop you if you don't settle down. Run. Run to the end of the cannon. Oh yeah, then it transitions to a cutscene here. No, it doesn't. I can still control her. Oh, this is actually very creative. Yeah, there's like a video file there, though. This will never happen in modern video games. Well, they'll have a careful conversation about how women are oppressed. Kind and respectful conversation. Oh, you gotta hit it repeatedly. I thought it was like a timing thing, like you gotta wait. Doesn't matter.
You okay?
My cheeks hurt a bit. Forget about that. What's all this about? Oh, I'll catch the details later. In any case, the airship Highwind is now yours. Haha! Well, I'm glad you're safe. I'm gonna stay up here a little longer. Yeah, this is great music. Find the cockpit.
Damn it, why didn't you tell me you could fly an airship? I thought Tifa was gone for good.
Sorry, but I had to do something to trick the enemy. Come on, everyone is waiting. Everyone's here? Welcome to my airship, the High Wind. What's wrong? You should be more excited than that. Sid. Yeah? Not enough crew. Well, it takes all kinds. Tifa, I'll give you information, Shinra. Ask me if there's anything you don't understand.
Hey, you. What the hell are you doing?
Oh, I should say, I don't know what kind of accent to give him. Southern accent?
What's that sad face for?
I have like a save point anywhere. So glad you're alright, Tifa. Ah, don't talk to me right now. Not sure. I think we go to the little front here. And look out. Not sure where I go. Jersey accent. Jersey accent. Operation. Oh, it's like a little room here. The Jersey accent. Yeah, I like in Final Fantasy IV he uses like hammers and wrenches and stuff. I always thought that was a little more appropriate than a spear. I thought there was a save point around here. Chocobo, that's what that says. George Rockball Schmidt made an interesting video covering all the subjects you talked about regarding younger generations in college. I made a tweet about it, tagging me. Thank you. I'll take a look at it. Not sure what I need to... I thought you could walk off an edge here. I'm missing some room. Maybe I gotta find another room here. Remember. Back up top. Chocobo operation. Maybe we talked to the guy in operation. I don't remember. Middle room. Go speak to Captain Sid. Now, regardless, I need to actually call it here. So I'm going to make a quick ghetto save, and then I'm going to call it here. Overwrite state. All right. Yep. All right. I got to go, guys. I'm a little bit done for the day. I will try to get set up to do some Fire Emblem Engage content once I get another video input device capture card. My old one died, so this happens. It happens. So anyway, I appreciate it, guys. I will I'll talk to you all next time. I don't know what to link here. Oh, make sure you're on the mailing list because I'm gonna give away a freebie this month, I think. So you can grab that freebie, and we will pick it up next week. Maybe we'll do some extra stuff. I'd like to start some more music streams in the future, so hopefully there'll be more things like coming down the pipeline in the near future. I do appreciate it. What's the newest book? Oh, the newest book is Gen Y. It's the Gen Y book. Afterglow Generation Y. A collection of short stories. Some interesting, some schizophrenic as usual. But anyway, take a look at that, and I will see you all next time. Have a great one.